To the back of us, northwards, stretches the mountain barrier of Sierra del Perdón that has to be crossed by those following the Jacobean route from Roncesvalles. Behind are the plains of the basin of Pamplona. Now, after some strenuous effort, we descend to the beautiful town of Puente la Reina. Ahead, and since the early Middle Ages, pilgrims, men and women, have been making their way towards Santiago de Compostela after crossing the Somport Pass in the Pyrenees, following another branch of the Aragonese pilgrims route leading from Olcoz to Puente la Reina. Olcoz is especially noteworthy for its fine Gothic noble house, and the north wall on the facade of its Romanesque church, an almost exact mirror image replica of that existing in Eunate and in the French town of Bain, but better conserved than Eunate, enables a sense of the reliefs that had been lost from the latter to be imagined, mainly a capital on the right that depicts the figure of two women squatting. The Romanesque church of St. Mary of Eunate was built in the 12th century. It takes its name from the polygonal series of arches that surround it. Eunate means 100 doors in the Basque language Euskera. It is said that owing to its location, its peculiar ground plan and its craftsmanship, it must have been founded by the Knights Templar. The uncertainty of its origins and the limited documentation existing make it a singular, enigmatic place. Visiting it and observing those who have spent hours walking around it 3 times, entering and standing beneath the keystone of its vault so as to fill oneself with telluric energy, is something that is both surprising and disconcerting, even if one does not believe in it. Until the bridge was built over the Arga River, which lends its name to the town of Puente la Reina, Gadis, the Aragonese and Navarre ways originally merged at the town of Obanos. Constructed in the first half of the 11th century, this magnificent medieval bridge encouraged pilgrimages to Santiago and helped the town to prosper. It was Alphonse the Battler who in 1122 granted a royal charter and the fuero of Estella to the town of Puente la Reina, on the site of the former Vascon hamlet of Garesh, also known as Garex or Gares, with the intention of populating and consolidating strategic points on the pilgrim's route to Santiago. Transformed into one of the best fortified towns in the Kingdom of Navarre, its medieval origins can still be made out in the form of its palaces and churches. For instance, on Calle Mayor or Rua de los Peregrinos, Pilgrim Street, the 12th century parish church of St. James. Inside the church, of special note is the sculpture of St. James the Pilgrim, popularly known as Santiago Belcha, Belcha meaning black in Euskera. Opposite the viewpoint to our right, perched on a steep hill between vineyards and fields of grain, is the chapel of Arnotegi. According to legend, this is the place where St. Guillen, of noble origin, attained saintliness after making a pilgrimage to Santiago by way of payment for his crime of having killed his sister Felicia. As St. Guillen did not agree with the fact that she had chosen a life of servitude and piety rather than accept the marriage arranged by her father. These facts are commemorated in the Eucharistic play The Mystery of Obanos, which is depicted on this site. The play takes place every 2 even-numbered years, during the second fortnight of July, and has been declared a fiesta of national tourist interest. Parallel to this, the ritual of blessing wine and water on Maundy Thursday each year remains, when these must be poured over the relics allegedly belonging to the saint that are kept in a silver head. Not in vain does Arnotegi mean place of wine. The strength of the pilgrim's route to Santiago during the Middle Ages attracted the French monastic orders. The Cistercian monks from Burgundy were the first to study the land, select the plants, experiment with pruning, and choose plots of land that were sheltered from frost and more exposed to the sun, thus enabling riper grapes to be obtained. The vineyards we can see today from this vantage point, and which we have been coming across all along the way as far as this information point, have been recently planted. Research and improvement in terms of cloning have enabled varieties that are well adapted to the humidity and temperature of these lands to evolve. Lands which are too far north for what at other times would have been considered to be suitable fields for growing vines. The arable land of Olite, at an altitude of 400 meters above sea level, comprises clay calcareous soils. Its south-facing vineyards and the limited rainfall make Olite an ideal location for vineyards. thus considerably reducing the need for chemical and mechanical treatment on the vines. Geographically, Olite represents the end of the windings of gentle hills that stretch as far as the plain on the banks of the Cidacos River. It is therefore a transition zone between the Sierra de Ujue and the flatlands of the Ribera. The vineyards we can see on this path are located on very fertile land. Traditionally, these lands were set aside for irrigated crops or fields of grain. The highest ground, also of poorer quality, was used for growing vines, olives and almonds. The richest lands, and the ones with the most humidity, generate more lush vegetation and can give rise to problems in terms of ripening and quality, or in generating the appearance of rot or hydric stress. All these factors can be counteracted by phytosanitary treatment, winter pruning and green pruning of the shoots, leaves and even bunches, all in an attempt to establish a productive rebalance. There has been a long history of vine growing and winemaking in Olite for centuries. Theobald I, King of Navarre and Count of Champagne, established this tradition in the 11th century after discovering the richness of its land and its favourable climatic conditions. Later, it would be Charles III, the noble, who, once he had established his court in Olite, would lend his support to vine growing and winemaking. Wines that were already renowned during his era and in demand beyond the borders of the Kingdom of Navarre. Once the phylloxera crisis that had been declared in Navarre came to an end in 1896, Don Victoriano Flamarique founded the first cooperative wine cellar in 1910, known as Bodega Cooperativa Olitense, this being consolidated in the modern concept of wine cellar in 1911. The following have their head offices in Olite: the Control Board of the Navarra Designation of Origin, the Wine Guild of Navarre, and the Viticulture and Enology Station of Navarre, EVENA, devoted to official activities regarding viticulture and enology, and geared towards the professionalization of viticulture, enology and wine cellars. The Wine Museum of Navarre is also located in Olite, in addition to different wine shops and restaurants that make the town the economic, scientific and cultural wine centre of Navarre. Olite becomes the wine capital of Navarre during the first fortnight in September, when it plays host to the Fiesta de la Vendimia grape harvest festival. During this festival, the ripeness of the fruit is assessed, picked by hand and pressed by treading on the vines, as was done in years gone by. The Wine Guild of Navarre officially opens the grape harvest season with tasting and assessment of the first musts. The Royal Palace stands out on the horizon above the attractive, well-preserved historic Old Quarter of Olite, making it a town icon. It originally dates from the end of the 12th century. A defensive castle was initially built during the reign of Sancho VII, the Strong, above a Roman settlement. This was improved during the reign of his successors Theobald I and Theobald II of the House of Champagne. The extension work on the current site was carried out during the reign of Charles III the Noble from the House of Evreux. This king of French origin spent his youth and much of his reign in Olite. The predominant style of the original building is Gothic, as is made clear in its galleries and windows. The fruits of successive extensions and reconstruction work, this complex comprises living quarters, courtyards and annexes that include the parish church of St. Mary. The beautiful facade of the Church of St. Mary is partly decorated with motifs and scenes from daily life, depicting the presence of vine growing and the close relationship between Christian worship and wine consumption.